Great to be back in Tampa. Thank you for coming. It's great to be in the state that has been ranked for 3 years in a row by CNBC, no less, #1 economy in the United States of America. And that adds to our list of number ones. We're also #1 for education freedom and have been for many years, #1 for public higher education. We have a 50-year low in the crime rate. We have the lowest per capita debt of all 50 states, and we've retired almost 50% of it now. Just since I've been governor of the entire history of Florida, we've knocked out 50% of it just in our tenure. We're also the lowest number of state government workers per capita anywhere in the country, and yet we're still doging all this stuff even more to do even better. And then if you look at what we're doing on illegal immigration, we are far and away the #1 state that is fighting for illegal immigrants to be deported. Not even a close second. We're also the only state that actually returned money to the DOJ and the federal level for rejecting federal funds. I mean, we rejected things that Biden was trying to cram down our throat. Oh, you get money for roads, but then you've got to monitor everyone's tailpipe emissions or do DEI. That ain't happening on my watch. And so we've rejected it, but Biden didn't even know how to take it back. We sent it back under the Trump administration. So on and on, we've led on so many different issues, and that's part of the reason why people look to Florida for leadership. Now, we're here today because we had a vacancy in one of our statewide offices. So we have the governor, of course, who I think you guys all know who I am. We have Attorney General, Chief Financial Officer, Agriculture Commissioner. Our Chief Financial Officer after the 2022 election got reelected, Jimmy Petronis. He ran for Congress in Florida Congressional District 1. He got elected to that position and then had to resign, of course, from CFO. I said that I would make a selection when the legislative session ended, which was scheduled to end in May 2nd. Ended up going all the way to the wire, and so we were signing bills in the budget, at the end of June, even in the beginning of July, some of the legislation. So I said, as soon as that's over, this will be kind of next to be able to fill appointments. And, when you do something like this, for me, when I look at this, I look at what have you done? Because don't tell me you're going to do all these great things if you've had an opportunity to do it and you've never stood up and fought when it counted. I want people that have conservative principles. I want people that are dedicated to the mission, but I also want people that run into the fire, that run towards the battles. We've got a lot of people that when things get a little tough, they cut and run, or they kind of just sit on the sidelines, see how things go out, and will just offer nothing but platitudes even when they do enter the fray. And then even worse, you do have Republicans that will run for office singing our music, then they get in and they betray the voters that elected them in the first place. That obviously is the worst of any possible situation. So Chief Financial Officer is important because it's interesting. I work with the legislature to get DOJ authority for the state of Florida, the governor's office, so we can DOJ audit local governments and expose, I think, a lot of bloat in these local governments. And then the question is why are you paying property taxes to fund this bloat? Why don't we give homeowners a relief? And so that's all underway. But, the Chief Financial Officer has the ability to audit any governmental entity that receives state funds, which is pretty much probably everyone in the state of Florida. And so that authority is there. You have an opportunity to do that. You also have an opportunity when you're managing, of course, the checkbook and everything for the state, but also to continue, the momentum to heal Florida's insurance market. And it's very difficult when you have 6 major hurricanes in 7 years. But in the last 2 years, because of very difficult work, we've now have 14 companies that are entering the market in Florida. It's the only way you're going to be able, you have competition. California, they're all leaving. Other states, they're all leaving. It's a problem really nationwide, but particularly for us with the tropical. So you have an opportunity to really be a voice for consumers when it comes to these really important issues. So there's a lot that can be done, but certainly we need to have people in office that are going to continue the momentum, that are going to build off the success. We don't want people that are going to try to undercut that success. We don't want people that don't have a record of getting in there and fighting for what's right, even when it's difficult. And so with that in mind, I'm pleased today to be able to announce that I am appointing the most conservative senator in the state of Florida, someone that has a very clear record as a warrior for all the things that the voters that elected us want us to do, to be our next chief financial officer, and that is Senator Blaise Ingoglia. Now, it's interesting because if you look on his Twitter handle, it's not Blaise or Ingoglia or Senator, it's Gov Gone Wild. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he told me that this was years ago. He was watching out-of-control spending at the local level. And he's like, well, why are we paying higher property taxes when you guys are spending like this? And so it was really to be an activist to get new people in at the local level that would be friendly to taxpayers. And now as chief financial officer, this is really going to come full circle for him because he's going to have the authority to go in and audit all those local governments and really hold them accountable in addition to everything that we do. But I said that I care about record. And yes, he's got a great financial record, which is important, but I looked even broader than that because I want to say who's running towards these fights and who's running and hiding. And on every single time we've had a flashpoint in Florida, Blaise is running into battle to stand up for people like you. Look at illegal immigration. Nobody in the Florida legislature has done more to crack down on illegal immigration than Senator Blaise Ingoglia. He was the author of our E-Verify legislation. He was instrumental in enacting the illegal alien transport program, which even visited places as far away as Martha's Vineyard. He led the effort to stop localities from being able to issue IDs to illegal aliens. We don't do driver's license at the state of Florida, but some of these locals wanted to do it. He put the kibosh on that. Also cracked down on establishments like hotels and motels that facilitate human trafficking, which is very much intertwined with illegal immigration. Also increased penalties for child predators, which also has connection for illegal immigration. But then earlier this year, I called a special session of the Florida legislature because with President Trump about to take office, I knew this was our one final chance to be able to end the problem of illegal immigration once and for all. And yes, it starts with sealing the border, which the President's done a great job of, but then you have all these millions and millions of people that Biden let in, and then many millions even over the years before that. There was no way that you were going to be able to conduct the largest removal operations in American history successfully unless the states and the local law enforcement were working hand in hand with DHS and the Trump administration to do this. And so I asked for a number of policies, most significantly requiring that all state and local law enforcement agencies participate in these deportation operations and holding illegal aliens accountable. And Blaise was standing there right beside me. Obviously, the voters that elected us, that's exactly what they wanted to see. But we had a movement in the Florida legislature led by the Speaker of the House to sabotage what we were trying to do. And they even passed legislation that I vetoed that would have made all the operations we have done this year in conjunction with DHS illegal in Florida. Alligator Alcatraz, under their bill, would have been illegal in the state of Florida. It was one of the worst pieces of amnesty legislation I have ever seen, and one of the worst pieces of legislation we have ever seen Republicans put forward in the state of Florida. I vetoed it. I a handful of guys that stood with me for that. All the people were standing with me, but these politicians had the different agenda. Blaise was standing strong against that amnesty legislation. And if you didn't have people like Blaise standing strong against that, you would not have Florida leading the charge in that. And in fact, we would have ended up being a de facto sanctuary state. So Blaise was right. A lot of these other guys, starting with the Speaker of the House, were wrong, and nobody should ever forget what they tried to do to you. That was stabbing you in the back with that legislation, and there was no question Blaise was not going to be cowed by that, and so I really appreciated him standing for that. He's also been the leader in the Florida legislature on election integrity measures. So you look at Florida has probably the best run elections anywhere in the country. And we've done a series of reforms the entire time I've been governor. We try to build off the success to be able to make it that way and to be transparent and to be efficient. So all the things that we've done. Now, I came in immediately. We removed the Palm Beach supervisor of elections, Broward supervisor of elections. We made it clear that we had a new sheriff in town, but we needed legislation to be able to bring this all to a head. So if you look at things like banning ballot harvesting, if you look at things like banning Zuckerbucks, all the major reforms that we were really leading the way on, Blaise was all leading those efforts every step of the way. You also look at his record on conservative issues, like the Second Amendment. He's got a 100% record on Second Amendment issues. Never voted to violate your Second Amendment rights. He's worked hard to break down outdated licensing barriers for people with reforming. It was a major landmark reform we did on occupational licensing. He's also been the leader in the Florida legislature on supporting term limits for county commissioners and school board members, and is also a big supporter of what I'm supporting nationwide in Article 5 amendments to do both a balanced budget amendment for Congress and term limits for members of Congress, which is really important. When we saw the woke mind virus flare up around the country a few years back, it led to skirmishes in Florida where we had to pass Parental Rights in Education Act to say, yeah, you know what, as a parent, you can send your kids to school in Florida and they're not going to be taught that their gender is just a choice and they can change genders. That's not happening in Florida. We did things that the parents really appreciated. Not everyone appreciated that. Media, other things, and we even had a little company in Central Florida that didn't appreciate that, and we had to make a stand there, and a lot of people said we were wrong on doing that, but we were absolutely right to sign parental rights, but then we were also right to ensure, that we didn't have one company in Central Florida being able to also control its own local government, and so Blaise was instrumental in us clawing back that authority. We now have this run by a state board, oversight board, and guess what they've done? They've cut taxes for all the local businesses. More local businesses are able to compete for projects. It's been a total home run. People said that Disney was going to leave Florida as a result of that. I think actually they're going to invest many billions of dollars more in Florida. But there were a lot of people that just they didn't necessarily want to be heard on that. Blaise was with us every step of the way. You also look this past November. We had special interests poured $275 million to amend Florida's Constitution with Amendments 3 and 4. Both would have been very bad for the state. We were up against a lot. Blaise was 100% on board to defeat both of those amendments, and we fortunately were able to defeat both of those amendments. So I think as CFO, he's going to be a really important voice for what a lot of Floridians are asking for, and that's relief from property taxes. And we're looking at this very, very closely because, obviously you have to make the numbers work. And I think we're going to be able to produce a proposal that's going to be very, very bold, but we're going to be out there soliciting input from people. But the reality is, the free state of Florida needs to mean they're not going to tax your income, but it should also mean that you actually own your own property and you're not perpetually paying rent to the government. And that's the vision that Blaise shares with me, and I know that's a vision that a lot of people in Florida want to see realized. And so that's not something we can just do by executive action, even by legislative enactment in the legislature. It's something that will require Florida voters to approve on the ballot in November of 2026. And so he's going to be instrumental in that. We also, a lot of people may not know that the chief financial officer serves as the state's chief fire marshal. Blaise was very supportive of my initiative to increase the pay of all the state firefighters. We wanted 25%. The House, under the Speaker, wanted 0. The Senate helped us get to 15%, and that's what we ended up getting. And we're going to come back for more next year. But I think that as he leads the state component of our firefighter corps in Florida, they're going to know they have someone that has a demonstrated record of fighting for them and fighting for their interests. So I'm glad to be able to make this appointment. To me, the record speaks everything. And if you want to know what someone's going to do when they get into a position, look what they've done when they've had opportunities to lead. Did you lead? Did you cower? Or did you actually stab us in the back? I mean, there's really only 3 ways you can go. And I'm pleased to say that we have our warrior senator stood with us every step of the way and stood with the people of Florida every step of the way on all these very, very important issues. And so without further ado, the state of Florida's next chief financial officer, Senator Blaise Ingoglia.
Thank you, everyone. It is an honor to be here. And first, I want to thank my friends, my family, my wife, my daughter, my dad, my sister are here. This really means a lot. And for the people who know me, you guys know I care deeply about these issues. And I work night and day to make sure that I am a good public servant for you. And I personally want to thank probably the greatest governor we may ever seen in any lifetime, Governor Ron DeSantis, for leading the way. So a couple of years ago, I had a conversation with the governor. I said, think about running for a higher office. And he immediately said, CFO, right? Because he knows, the governor knows how much I care about spending. He knows how much I care about spending less and having better outcomes. And sometimes that is just the opposite of what government does. But that's never stopped me. I've had a history of calling out wasteful spending, whether it was Democrats or Republicans, because I truly believe that government is accountable to the people, and our job is to make sure that we deliver that promise. There are some things that I'm going to work on as your next CFO, and I'm going to work day and night to ensure that this happened. I had said, even though we weren't able to enable any property tax reform this past legislative session, I've said publicly that I am not going away. I am going to continue to work hard to offer property tax reform. I am going to work hand and glove, side by side with this governor to make sure that we get rid of property taxes on homestead exemption and offer real property tax relief to the people of the state of Florida. That I will continue doing. Part of that also is making sure that we are cutting away and eliminating wasteful spending at the local level. I don't need to tell you, you guys see it, that local government, cities, county, spend things that should probably not be spent on. But with the audit authority at the CFO's office, I promise you, we are going to start digging in and we are going to start calling out some of this wasteful spending. We are going to be a proactive office. People call me a conservative pit bull in the Senate. I'm going to be the conservative pit bull when it comes to spending as your next CFO. That I will promise you. First responders. I have always stood up for our first responders. I've always been there with law enforcement, working with the governor to make sure that we're bringing bonuses and we are recruiting the best from other states that want to escape high tax, high regulatory states and relocate to the state of Florida. Being state fire marshal is an opportunity for me that is near and dear to my heart. I know that there are firefighters in the room, and I thank you guys for our service. The firefighters probably already know this, but I carried the bill that got them presumption cancer coverage to make sure that we take care of our firefighters, because fires of the past are not like fires of today. 50, 60 years ago, if a structure was burned, it was usually concrete and wood. Now they're plastic. And when these toxins enter the air, it's unfortunate, and we thank them for the service, but a lot of them are getting lung cancer for serving us. I will always stand with the firefighters. I'm going to continue to work hard as the state fire marshal to make sure that we help them out if they become injured on a job. With that, I was also instrumental in passing the PTSD bill, because our cops, our sheriff's deputies, our first responders, unfortunately do suffer PTSD. And we have a higher than unusual rate of suicide amongst our first responders. It is a plague that needs to be solved, and you have my commitment that I will continue working on these issues. The governor already spoke on positive reforms when it comes to insurance. I will continue to work hard on insurance. In fact, I'm going to work on housing affordability overall, because when you have a house in the state of Florida, anywhere, you're usually paying principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. The taxes and insurance is something that we can help out with. Insurance was starting to run away, and the costs were just getting astronomical. But we put reforms in, and now we, the state of Florida, is leading the nation in bending the cost curve and making sure that we are getting the waste, fraud, and abuse out of the insurance industry. But I want insurance companies to listen to me. What I'm going to say next, especially for the cameras. If an insurance company does not do what they say they are going to do and contractually obligated to do, I am going to call you out. I am going to make sure that people know that the CFO will stand with people against unscrupulous insurance companies who are not doing what they are supposed to be doing. But with that, we are going to create the environment, continue creating the environment where we have a vibrant insurance market that will continue to push down rates. Look, it is unfortunate. A lot of the premiums, not the rates, the premiums for insurance companies have increased over the years, especially over the last 5 years. And the main reason for that were two things. One is that fraudulent insurance company claims were driving up costs, but also insurance premiums are based upon the replacement cost of your house. So if your house 5 years ago was worth $200,000 and now it's worth $400,000, your insurance premiums are going to go up. So just know that I'm going to be watching the insurance market, and I'm going to be helping out. Including that, I'm going to be helping out the insurance agents to make sure that you guys as policy holders are getting the maximum amount out of your policies, and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. I'm going to be a proactive fiscal watchdog for the state of Florida. One of my big concerns is turning Florida into New York. Do not New York our Florida. The difference under the leadership of Governor Ron DeSantis and what we are doing compared to California and New York is astronomical. New York, we have more residents than New York right now. Their budget is more than twice what ours are. That is fiscal insanity. We stand for fiscal sanity. I'm going to make sure that this place does not turn into the place where so many people are fleeing from, New York, New Jersey. not on my watch. I'm going to make sure that we are fiscally sane. I'm going to look to protect consumers against fraud. I'm going to work with the insurance agents to make sure that we are calling out the fraud. And I will tell you this, no one will work harder than I will to make sure that they deliver on these promises. Every single campaign promise I have ever said on the campaign trail over the last 10 years, I've delivered on. If I tell you I'm going to do it, I'm going to get it done. Governor, thank you for entrusting me with this.
All right.
We'll do great things.
Well done. And just, from a fiscal perspective, not only do we have some more people than New York, we've got 4 million more people than New York. They have 19.5 million. We have 23.5 million. And yet, how is their budget more than twice our budget? Are their roads better? No. Are their services better? No. And obviously, our education's doing better. So where's that money going? Those are choices that are being made. New York City's budget all by itself is more than the entire state of Florida's budget. And the budget I signed after my line item vetoes, we're spending less in fiscal year 25-26 than we did in fiscal year 24-25, and we spent less in fiscal year 24-25 than we did in the previous fiscal year. And so how many other states are actually reducing spending? And yeah, some of that was, there was money sent down for COVID and all that was kind of one-time things, but I think it shows a real commitment to fiscal responsibility. And we've paid down, now with this budget, we'll have paid down almost 50% of Florida's total debt. We're obviously going to come back for more and do that in the ensuing years as well. But I don't know that there's that many states that are actually paying down and reducing debt. Your share of debt as a Florida resident, I think, is like $400. Your share of national debt as an American is like $106,000. And so, and escalating, ours is declining. So there's a big difference in terms of how we've approached it for how these other states have approached it. I do think that as much as, I say, I'm not asking anyone to move here because we've got a lot of people and you got to build roads. And honestly, I'm fine if we just kind of chill for a while. But the reality is, if they elect this guy mayor of New York, you are going to see people flee the coop. From just the cops. Would you want to be a police officer when this guy thinks your agency shouldn't even exist? When he's going to blame the cops anytime anything goes wrong? I wouldn't want to do that. And so you come down to Florida, you get a $5,000 bonus. Do you have any openings in Hernando? Are you pretty full? Okay. All right. Well, some places have some openings. I know some PDs and some other, but the reality is you're just going to see that. And so as much as I am not saying, move here, whatever, because I do think, housing's gone up everywhere since COVID, but Florida, you did have an intense demand. So people are buying these homes because they desperately wanted to be here. So when you have a little bit of a break from that, I think it gives some people some chance to get their sea legs. But the reality is, in a free country, people vote with their feet. And people are going to make those decisions. And every time they do dumb things in these other parts of the country, people tend to look to Florida to be the refuge. And so I'm happy to do this. I think Blaise is going to do a lot of good stuff on particularly the auditing of local governments. And we have authority. We've got a team in governor's office, but we're going to be working hand in hand to make sure local government's not easy, and we've got some people that do a great job, but we've also got some that have a lot of problems. And I definitely have a few in mind that I know need a little bit of examination. Let's just say that. So, okay, I see Forrest from Tallahassee. What do you got?
Thanks for that question, Forrest.
Like I said in my comments, I go by your record. Political campaigning, political stuff, to me, is not as important about what's your record in office. And if you look at somebody like Joe Gruters, he's voted to violate Floridians' Second Amendment rights. Blaise has stood in favor of Second Amendment rights. We did landmark legislation to hold teacher unions accountable for their partisan activism. It was a huge achievement for Republicans. Joe Gruder sided with the teacher unions rather than side with conservatives. On immigration, he was the author and architect of this terrible amnesty bill, which would have made everything I've done, including Alligator Alcatraz, to help President Trump's illegal immigration removal agenda illegal in the state of Florida. Even protecting our coasts with the boats from the Haitians coming in, we wouldn't have been able to do that. He also authored legislation that would have put gender ideology as a special class in Florida law. We've done the opposite since I've been governor. And then when we had the fight over Amendment 3, Joe Gruder sided with the mega weed company True Leaf and was joining with liberal Democrats to try to do it. So his record is contrary to what we've told the voters that we would do. And it's all about doing what you said you were going to do, delivering. Blaise has done what the voters that have elected all of us expect. Joe Gruder has taken major positions that are totally contrary from what our voter base wants to do. So when it comes to making an appointment, I have to go on the record. And I can tell you, if Blaise supported the Perez-Gruder's amnesty bill, he would not be standing on this stage today. That's just the truth. And I like him personally, but it doesn't matter. It's all about the record. So if George Washington rose from the dead and came back and tapped me on the shoulder and said, will you appoint Joe Gruder CFO? My response would be, no, I can't do that without betraying the voters that elected me to lead this state in a conservative direction.
Governor, are you prepared for a rift with the White House over this particular point?
I don't think so. I mean, we were with the president the other day. I mean, he said we've got a great relationship. He's never once mentioned this to me, and all the times I've spoken with him over these months. And so, I don't know how high it is on his radar. I know there are political operatives that stand to gain by certain things. I get that, but in terms of him, it's never been anything we've discussed.
Is it fair to say that you'll be campaigning, as you are right now, for Blaise throughout the next year and a half?
Well, I think the main thing we're going to do is do the people's business, right? Like, there's no need to campaign for a year and a half. I mean, honestly, it's like, are you focusing on that, or are you focusing on substance? And so he's going to come in, I think, with a head of steam, and you're going to see him doing things in office, not promising, not doing platitudes, but actually doing the job in office. That, to me, is what it's all about. I think, whether you're campaigning here, campaigning there. So he'll be a good partner with us, and I think he's going to produce really big results. And when you're doing that, then all the campaigning takes care of itself. When you're running and you have a record that you can run on, then you don't have to worry about this or that. I mean, when I was running in 22, I didn't campaign that much the last couple months because I had to deal with the Hurricane Ian. And we were off the trail for like 3 or 4 weeks. And you know what? It didn't matter because people knew that I had delivered time and time again. And that's really what it's all about, is delivering in office. As I said, if you have a record of fighting, if you have a record of delivering, then I have confidence that you have an ability to do that going forward. If you don't have that record, if you're not running into the battles, if you're not taking on the tough issues, if you're not willing to make tough decisions when it's not easy, well, then you're not all of a sudden going to grow some backbone, right? It doesn't work that way. If you once a linguine spine, always a linguine spine. That's kind of how it is. So you've got to be somebody that is going to be fighting. And I think he's proven that he can fight and win. And a lot of the success that we've had in Florida is a result of having really good folks fighting for these things in the Florida legislature.
I have a question for our Blaise and I cover insurance only here in Tampa. As you know, it's #1 priority for voters, and I know we're waiting for the market to stabilize. For those who feel the state still isn't doing enough, they're not seeing those rate decreases reflected in their premiums. As you mentioned, they're different. What would you say to all those?
I would say, first, I would rebut the claim that insurance rates have not taken a turn downward. So we have to distinguish between premiums and rates. As I've said before, premiums are going to go up as property values go up because it's based upon replacement costs. So when you hear some people on TV, quite frankly, getting hyperbolic, saying my premiums have increased, go after the Republicans, they're going up because their properties increase. Now, let's talk about the rates. The rates are what the insurance companies set. That is a percentage of the actual replacement costs. When it comes to the rates, what we've seen and what the data is showing, that the reforms that we put in a couple of years ago is actually bending the cost curve down. We are seeing rates drop in auto insurance, and we're also seeing it drop in property taxes also. In fact, I think the last bit of data that I had seen said that 49 states had double-digit increases in the rates for insurance over the last 12 months, and Florida's was, I think it was less than 1%. But having said that, we continue doing what we need to do. We cannot undo the reforms that we put in place because then you're adding costs to the cost structure. And this is what I don't understand. Insurance companies are no different than any other business. It's a P&L and it's a balance sheet, profit and loss. So when you add frivolous lawsuits, which is what we've seen, now, not all lawsuits are frivolous. In fact, a lot of the lawsuits that are filed are done because insurance companies weren't doing what they were supposed to do, and I've already made the promise that I'm going to hold them accountable and I'm going to call them out. But we cannot go back to the days of past where we're adding all that cost to the structure and expect rates to down. The math does not math when you do that.
And then, the thing is so in 24, Florida had the lowest rate increases in the country of all 50 states. Now, obviously, we've had 6 major hurricanes in 7 years. That is a factor that these other states just don't have to deal with. But you got a report the other day, massive increases in some of these states in the middle of the country, huge issues with insurance nationwide. I haven't seen Congress offer any type of relief. What was done in Florida was to relieve the excessive costs, where Florida represented 78% of all litigation costs nationwide on property insurance. Well, that is not going to be sustainable. And so since that was done, you've had stability. Now, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden people are having massive decreases, which is what people want, but there's stability. So what are the reforms that people propose that would make a positive difference? I know Blaise has always been open to that in the Senate. I'm obviously open to that in the governor. What did they try to do this year in the Florida House of Representatives? Did they try to do anything that would have reduced rates? No. They tried to do a bill that would have enriched plaintiffs' lawyers and would have caused rates to spike. Every analyst that looked at that said it would have caused rates to spike. It would have undone the progress to get to a place where we were attracting businesses and attracting companies. And that was proposed by Republican leadership in the Florida House of Representatives. So when I hear people out when they're talking about the insurance, they either don't provide any positive reform that would make a difference, which I think I'm open to. What they're trying to do is basically run interference for trial lawyers, because the reality is the more litigation you bring, if you're getting attorney's fees and the other isn't, then you have an incentive to do. And that's what was in Florida. Very few other states had that. We obviously had a cottage industry that has developed on all these different things. I mean, they did the roofer scam. They did this, they did that. That causes people to go. But the one thing that got traction in the Florida legislature would have caused your insurance rates to spike. Everyone that looked at that acknowledged that that was the case. And so part of what I think you got to do is to prevent that from happening and to make sure that we continue to be a place where people have confidence. I mean, you think about it, you've had 14 new companies come in since these reforms were done. This stuff doesn't happen overnight, but people 2 years ago were thinking Florida wouldn't have any insurance offer. Like California, they're leaving. We've got millions and millions, and we've actually added private policies by the 100, 200,000 over the last couple of years. So that defied what most people were saying when you have 6 major hurricanes in 7 years. So any positive reforms, bring them forward. But I can tell you that the number one thing that will help in this is not anything the legislature can do. It's Mother Nature. If we have a 10-year period like we did last decade where we don't have any major events, if we have one of those runs, you're going to see things improve very quickly. If we're constantly getting hit with majors, that just makes it more difficult. And I think if you look at how the market responded to 2 majors last year, you haven't seen big, stiff increases across. You've seen basically stability, which I think a lot of people didn't think was done. But I think when people prattle about this, ask them what they want to do about it. Ask them for specifics about what they want to do. It's the most complicated homeowners insurance market in the country, maybe in the world. To ask them what they're going to do. Because what I hear is people do platitudes, and then they come up with a trial lawyer subsidy bill that's going to cause you to pay more. Oh, we're holding the companies accountable by underwriting more lawsuits. Well, that has not worked. I mean, that was tried. It didn't work. So what are they going to do? Make them tell you what they're going to do. Don't let them just prattle off and say they're going to do it. Because I can tell you, no state's been better managed in terms of our budget and all that than Florida, that we have under the last six years. And that stuff's not easy, but some of these issues are very, very difficult. They're not easy fixes. And so be very weary of politicians that prattle that all of a sudden they're going to come in and be this great solution for it. The reality is this. Most of these politicians, when they do things, it makes your life worse, not better, okay? You'd rather them just sit on their hands because their solutions end up just making the problem worse.
On immigration detention centers, what's the status of Tampa Landing?
So I had mentioned this the other day when I was in Northeast Florida. We sent out the request, the RFP for Blanding. I think that there are a number of people that submitted bids. What I've told the Alligator Alcatraz is filled. So the DHS has started moving in a significant number of people. I think and they're starting to deport people from there too. Remember, this is not the Ritz-Carlton, okay? We're not doing this just to let people have food and shelter, although they do get that. But that's not, and all the minimum standards are upheld. But the reality is it's there to be a quick processing center so that we have a runway right there, they can just be flown back to their home country. So that is the purpose of why we're doing it. And as that fills, once there's a demand, then we would be able to go for Camp Blanding. But what I don't want to do is set up Blanding if, one is 60% full and then the other's 40%. I'd rather just channel everyone to Alligator. Since it's easier, you can add from whatever you need. But we definitely think that you can do easily 3,000 to 4,000 at Alligator Alcatraz. We have not yet received that many illegal aliens yet there, but it has grown pretty quickly. And if you think about it, we submitted our proposals, just kind of a broad policy about what we can do with the Florida Division of Emergency Management in the spring. We worked with DHS, and then finally they said, yep, if you do that, that will be eligible for reimbursement. And so within a week, we had this facility set up. And I know other states are now saying they want to get in the ballgame. It'll be interesting to see, how quickly these other states are able to move. I think Florida has really set the standard, not only for executing missions, but doing it swiftly and doing it in ways that kind of defy people's expectations about what government can do. If you think about with the Iran conflict in Israel, we had students over there. We had a lot of Floridians over there. All of a sudden, they shut down Ben Gurion Airport. You got all these rockets down. We turned switch, and we executed rescue missions, and we brought back, I think we got like 1,500 people out of Israel on boat. We fly people to, and we are the only state in the game on that. Now, I'm not saying that every state has the same connections that Florida does in terms of our population and people that go over there or study over there. So I'm not saying every state should have done exactly what we did, but we were the ones in the game, and we were able to bring a lot of people back home to safety. So that's just what we do. Blanding can be turned on very quickly. I know they'll award the bids once we make that decision, but I don't want to set up a new infrastructure until, and look, this may happen in a matter of a week or two, right? It's possible. We also have different ways we can do blanding. We can use existing infrastructure there, which would not give us as big of a footprint, so we would end up having, some illegals, but we wouldn't be able to house like 2,000 or 3,000 if the existing footprint. If we build out from there with the temporary structures, that's when you can get to 2,000 or 3,000. So we'll make those decisions based on the facts on the ground. But I told these guys, even though we're getting reimbursed for it, I was like, I don't want to be creating some structure that can hold 2,000 illegal aliens, and then we end up having like 150 there after a week. And I don't think that's I don't think that's the trend. I do think DHS is doing a good job of sending. And here's the thing. These are basically like military-age males that are going to Alligator Alcatraz. I mean, like, these are folks, and a lot of them have criminal records, but that's what's happening here, and I think it's been very effective. Now, I would note kind of like, the Democratic Party in this state, such that it still exists in this state, they really, I mean, honestly, like, if I had to say, like, what I, as a Republican governor, would want you guys to focus on to benefit us, I would tell them try to kick up a storm about Alligator Alcatraz. Because first of all, what they're doing is incredible, and people that have been, but these are people that are illegally in the country. Many of them do have criminal records. Have you ever seen these Democrats in Florida fight this hard for you as an American citizen? I haven't seen that. In fact, they've opposed almost everything that we've done over these many years. And yet they're fighting tooth and nail to not have illegal aliens deported to their home country. Now, can you imagine, as an American, if you tried to like illegally enter France or Japan or China? I mean, you'd be sent back. Like, it wouldn't even be a question that would happen. You want to try to work illegally in some of those countries? No way. They would not let you. So this is just basic upholding the rule of law. I do think it'll be beneficial if you're able to have an increased pace of removals. You're going to end up with less stress on schools, less stress on hospitals, less stress on the criminal justice system. I think higher wages for American workers, particularly in some of the industries that you constantly hear. So this is something that can be very beneficial for Floridians, and yet they want to basically put the thumb on the scale for folks here illegally to just stay in the state of Florida and stay here indefinitely. That's what they want. So I don't understand why they think this is something that is going to be effective. There's so many things that Floridians care about. Why don't you fight for Florida citizens? Why are you fighting for foreign nationals that came into the country illegally? It just doesn't make sense to me. One thing I do want to mention, we were at out in Hendry County yesterday. So this is Tampa Bay area, but we launched a major restoration, and it's the largest restoration in all of America, maybe in the world. And there's a lot of different components to it. But one of the things that we've had to do is construct reservoirs on each side of Lake Okeechobee. I mean, the Army Corps, when that lake goes, spew the water out into the rivers. It creates problems. And so we've worked with the Corps to mitigate that, but ultimately they can make those decisions. So we wanted to have the existing infrastructure where you could store water, clean it, and everything. Everyone lives happily ever after. So yesterday we opened the C-43 reservoir, which is on the east side of Lake Okeechobee. And that is going to hold, I mean, they said, we did the ribbon cutting, and South Florida Water Management District said you could fit almost every Florida university inside the footprint of this reservoir. I mean, like, it's just a massive reservoir. So that's going to be something that's going to be very good. And basically what we've tried to do is just restore the natural hydrology to the state of Florida, which means water moving further south through the Everglades into Florida Bay. And there's just a lot that goes into that. So that was a huge achievement. We also did the C-44. And federal government has had to work with us. We got to get them in a better spot. But we did the C-44, which is on the east side of Lake Okeechobee. Now we have this massive reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee, and we did our part in that ahead of schedule. The feds, Army Corps, are kind of doing what they're doing. But working with the president, we have I think an agreement that we're likely to arrive at, where we're going to get delegated the federal responsibility for a lot of those projects. And so we'll be able to get some of those done. And so under Biden, this really slid to where this wasn't going to be done till the middle of next decade. And we want it done this decade. So I think now that's going to compress the timeline. So stay tuned on that. But we've been working really, really hard. And the president himself said, we want to empower Florida, and even the Army Corps has acknowledged, look, Florida does things quick. We get it, and we want to utilize you. So if we're able to get that agreement and then really work going forward, that will be one of the biggest achievements that any state government has ever had, because that restoration was floundering when I became governor. We were way behind on what we needed to do, and we've really put a lot of emphasis and a lot of resources into doing something that'll have impacts in Florida for decades and decades to come. Okay, guys, thank you. God bless everybody.
Test, test.